Welcome to Talk Treatises. Today we are opening up a book that has, it's probably caused more arguments in dorm rooms and parliament buildings than almost anything else in the 19th century.
Oh, for sure.
It's a text from 1879 that claims to have the answer for, well, how we should make every single decision in our lives.
A powerhouse of a book. And frankly, it's one of those titles where everyone thinks they know what it means,
Right.
but they usually get it completely backward.
I'll be honest, when I hear utilitarianism, I don't exactly get the warm and fuzzies. I picture a cold, robotic computer crunching numbers.
The cold calculator.
Yeah, the villain in the movie who says, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, right before he throws the hero out an airlock.
That is the popular image, yeah. But the irony is that this book was written specifically to prove that this philosophy wasn't cold. He was actually trying to humanize morality.
Mm.
He wanted to solve a problem that had been driving philosophers crazy for about 2,000 years.
2,000 years. That seems like a long time to be stuck on a homework assignment.
It is. The book opens with this really palpable sense of frustration. He looks around at science, math, astronomy, physics, and he sees all this incredible progress.
We agree on the basics, we build on them, we move forward.
Exactly. But then he looks at ethics, at the question of right and wrong.
And we're still arguing about the same stuff Socrates was.
Precisely. He calls it a backward state. In his time, you had these two main camps fighting it out. You had the intuitionists who basically said morality is a feeling you're born with.
You just look inside your heart and you know.
Right. And then you had the inductivists who said, no, we have to observe the world to figure it out.
But neither side could actually give him a measuring stick.
No, they couldn't agree on the ultimate standard. What is the criterion? If I say stealing is wrong, why is it wrong? Is it because it feels icky? Or is it because it, actually hurts someone?
And his mission in this book is to finally hand us that measuring stick.
That's the goal.
Okay, so let's look at this yardstick. He calls it the greatest happiness principle. Before we tear it apart, what is the actual core thesis here?
The one-sentence summary is this. Actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, and wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness.
Okay, simple enough, but we have to define our terms. What does he mean by happiness? Because that's a pretty slippery word.
He's very specific. By happiness, he means pleasure and the absence of pain.
Right.
And by unhappiness, he means pain and the privation of pleasure.
All right, stop right there, because this is where I feel like the theory just runs into a wall. Pleasure. Really? That sounds incredibly shallow.
It does.
If the meaning of life is just pleasure, then aren't we just saying we should all be hedonists, just, eating cake and partying until we die?
That is exactly the reaction he got. The critics back then were brutal. They called it the doctrine of swine.
The doctrine of swine.
Yeah. The argument was, look, if you say the highest goal of a human is just pleasure, you're putting humans on the exact same level as pigs.
A pig rolling in the bud is experiencing pleasure.
And if that's the standard, then a happy pig is basically the peak of existence.
It's a fair point, though, isn't it? I mean, we like to think we have a higher purpose than just chasing dopamine hits.
And this is where he makes his most important distinction. This is the move that separates him from, the earlier utilitarians.
Yeah.
He turns it back on the critics. He says, you are the ones insulting human nature, not me.
Ow.
He says the critics are assuming that human beings are only capable of the same pleasures as swine. But we aren't. We have different equipment. We have intellect, imagination, moral sentiments.
Okay.
And he argues that once you know you have those faculties, you will never be truly happy with a life that ignores them.
So he's introducing a hierarchy, like not all pleasures are created equal.
Precisely. This is the argument of quality versus quantity. Earlier thinkers treated pleasure like a math problem, intensity times duration.
If the math is equal, the activity is equal.
Right. And he says no. There is a qualitative difference. Reading a great book or solving a problem is a higher pleasure than eating a candy bar, even if the candy bar gives you a quick rush.
But isn't that just him being a snob? I mean, who is he to tell me that poetry is better than playing a video game? Maybe I really, really like video games. Who's the referee here?
That's the big question. And he introduces the concept of the competent judge.
Competent judge.
He says, how do we determine which of two pleasures is better? Well, we find someone who has experienced both.
Okay, so we need a sampler platter.
Exactly. If you take a group of people who are capable of appreciating high art and enjoying, say, physical luxury, and you ask them, which one would you give up if you had to choose?
He thinks he knows the answer.
He's convinced he knows the answer. He thinks they will almost invariably prefer the existence that employs their higher faculties.
Even if, and this is the key, right? Even if that higher existence comes with more suffering.
Yes, even then.
Wait, why would they choose suffering? I thought that the whole point was happiness.
Because of dignity. A human being with high faculties has a sense of dignity that is, well, it's essential to their happiness. He argues you wouldn't consent to be turned into a fool or a beast just to be comfortable.
That brings up that famous quote, right? About Socrates.
Yes, it's one of the best lines in philosophy. It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. Better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied.
And what if the fool disagrees?
Mill says. And if the fool or the pig is of a different opinion, it is because they only know their own side of the question.
That is a very polite way of saying you don't know what you're missing.
Pretty much.
But let's ground this in reality for a second. He's writing this in the 19th century. You've got the Industrial Revolution, poverty, disease. It wasn't exactly a happy time for the average person.
No, not at all.
So when he talks about this happy life, is he describing some utopia that doesn't exist?
He's actually very grounded. He clarifies he's not talking about a life of constant rapture. He says that's, biologically impossible. Our nerves can't handle it.
That sounds reasonable.
He defines a happy life as one with few pains, many and various pleasures, and an active nature. Basically, a balance of tranquility and excitement.
Okay.
And he was an optimist. He believed that the terrible things in the world, poverty, disease, bad luck, they weren't inevitable. He called them bad social arrangements.
So he saw utilitarianism as a project. We're sort of building a world where happiness is possible.
We are, yes. He really believed that with enough human care and effort, we could conquer almost all the sources of suffering.
But here's where I get stuck.
Yeah.
If the goal is happiness, what do we do about the people who give up their happiness?
The hero, the martyr.
Exactly. The hero who jumps on a grenade, or the martyr who dies for a cause. We usually say those are the best people, but under this system, aren't they failing? They ended up with zero happiness.
This is a really tricky area for the theory. And he has to thread a needle here. He admits that, yes, in our current imperfect world, the readiness to sacrifice your own happiness is the highest virtue.
Okay, so he respects the martyr.
He respects the character of the martyr, but, and this is a massive distinction, he says the sacrifice itself is not a good thing.
Explain that.
Pain is never good. Loss is never good. The sacrifice is only good if it increases the total amount of happiness for everyone else.
So the ascetic on a pillar.
If you go live on a pillar in the desert and starve yourself just to prove you can do it and it doesn't actually help anyone, well, he says that's wasted. It's just net negative happiness.
It's not admirable. It's just sad.
Exactly. The utilitarian standard isn't about the agent's own happiness. It's about the happiness of all concerned. He actually compares it to the golden rule.
From the Bible.
Yeah, from Jesus of Nazareth. To do as one would be done by. That, he says, is the ideal perfection of utilitarian morality. You are supposed to be a disinterested, benevolent spectator.
Disinterested is a hard word there. It sounds like I shouldn't care.
It just means you shouldn't be biased toward yourself. When you're doing the calculus of what to do, you count your own happiness as exactly one unit and my happiness as exactly one unit. You don't get special treatment just because you are you.
Which is incredibly hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I care about my happiness way more than I care about a stranger's.
Of course. And the critics jumped on this. They said, this is too hard. You can't expect people to walk around all day with the motive of saving the world in their heads.
Right. If I save my brother from drowning, I'm doing it because I love him, not because I'm trying to balance the global happiness equation. Does that make me a bad utilitarian?
Not at all. And this leads us to a distinction that I think is crucial for understanding this, but people miss it all the time. The difference between motive and intention.
Okay, break that down.
He says the motive is the feeling that makes you want to act. The intention is what you actually do.
Okay.
Morality judges the act and the intention. It doesn't necessarily judge the motive.
So, using the drowning example.
If you save a drowning man because it's your moral duty, that's a right action. If you save him because you want to get a cash reward, the act is still morally right.
The man is saved.
The utility is generated. The guy in the water doesn't care why you pulled him out. He just cares that he's breathing.
Got it. So the motive tells us about the character of the person.
Exactly. The guy doing it for money might not be a saint, but the act itself, it qualifies as utilitarian. You don't have to have a pure heart to do a good thing.
I want to zoom out a bit because he's making a huge claim here. He's saying that happiness is the only thing desirable as an end. Everything else is just a means to get there.
Right. The intellectual problem again.
How does he prove that? You can't just prove that logically, can you?
No, you can't prove ultimate ends. It's like you can't use logic to prove that health is good. You just know it is. So he appeals to our senses.
Yeah.
He asks, what is the only proof that a sound is audible?
That people hear it,
And what is the only proof that an object is visible?
that people see it.
So he argues the only proof that something is desirable is that people actually desire it.
And everyone desires happiness.
Everyone desires happiness.
I don't know if I buy that completely. I mean, I desire other things. I desire to be virtuous. I know people who desire money just to have money. They aren't spending it on happiness. They just want the pile of cash.
Right. And doesn't that prove there are other goals besides happiness?
Yeah.
This is my favorite part of the book because he puts on his psychologist hat. He talks about the money analogy.
The money analogy.
Think about money. It's just green paper or digital numbers. In itself, is it valuable?
No, you can't eat it. It's just a tool.
Right. Originally, we only desire it as a means to an end.
Yeah.
We want it because it buys food or shelter or safety. But what happens over time?
We associate the paper with the safety.
Exactly. The association becomes so strong that the means becomes the end. We start desiring the money for its own sake. It becomes a principal ingredient of our happiness.
I see.
And he says virtue works the same way.
So we basically hack our own brains.
Pretty much. We start being virtuous because it brings us praise or keeps us out of jail. But for the best people, over time, the act of being honest or kind becomes part of the concrete whole of their happiness. They feel good because they are virtuous.
So when you desire virtue, you aren't desiring something outside of happiness.
You've just made virtue a part of your happiness definition.
That's a fascinating way to look at it. It implies our definition of happiness is fluid. We can add things to it.
They can.
But now we have to face the final boss.
Yeah.
The biggest objection to utilitarianism.
The problem of justice.
Yes.
This is the chapter that he struggles with the most. He knows that justice is the biggest threat to his theory because we have this visceral feeling about it.
Right. Expediency feels like a choice. Justice feels like a command. If I say it's expedient to lie, you might say, okay, maybe. But if I say it is unjust to lie,
You feel a reaction in your gut. It feels sacred.
and the fear is that utilitarianism could justify terrible things. If killing one innocent person makes 1,000 people happy, simple math says do it. But our sense of justice screams no.
Absolutely. So how does he square that circle? How does he keep the math but protect the innocent guy?
Yeah.
He digs into where that sentiment of justice comes from. He analyzes it. Legal rights, moral rights, keeping promises. And he concludes that the sentiment is basically two things: a rule of conduct and a powerful animal impulse to punish anyone who breaks the rule.
It's an animal impulse.
Yes. The desire for retaliation. If you hurt me, I want to hurt you back. That's the animal part. But because we're humans with wide sympathies, we extend that self-defense to our whole tribe.
So justice is just refined revenge.
It starts there. But then he gives us the definition of a right. And this is the key, he says. To have a right is simply to have something which society ought to defend me in the possession of.
But why ought society defend it? Why do I have a right to free speech or a right to not be punched?
For one reason only: general utility. But, and this is the part people miss, it's not just regular utility, it is the utility of security.
And why is security special?
Because it's the one thing we can't do without. We can live without poetry. We can live without candy. We can't live if we think we might be murdered in the next 5 minutes. Security is the precondition for all other happiness.
I see where this is going. Because security is so fundamental, the feelings we have about it are way more intense than for anything else.
Exactly. We treat it as absolute because we must. We cannot trade off our security for a minor convenience because if we lose security, we lose everything.
So justice isn't a separate standard from utility.
No, it is simply the name for the most important, most sacred class of social utilities.
He says the theory. He says we respect rights not because they're magic, but because respecting rights is the only way to keep society stable enough for happiness to even exist.
Correct.
All right, this is the part of talk treatises where we take the gloves off. We've heard the theory. Now we need to see if it holds water. It's time for our thought experiment segment.
And just a quick disclaimer. These scenarios are for entertainment and educational purposes only, inspired by the logic of the text we just covered.
Experiment number 1. I'm calling it the neural pacifier.
I like the sound of that.
Imagine a new technology. You can strap yourself into a chair, and this machine will surgically lower your intellect. You will become, effectively, a very happy golden retriever.
Okay.
You will have no anxiety, no existential dread about politics or climate change. You'll just have warm sun, good food, and constant belly rubs. Maximum sensory satisfaction. But zero higher intellect.
So the satisfied pig scenario, but with technology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The machine guarantees you will subjectively feel more pleasure units per minute than you do now as a stressed out human. Did you get in the chair?
Well, if we apply the logic from the text, the answer is a hard no.
But why? If the math says more pleasure, if the goal is happiness, shouldn't we chase the highest number?
Because he argues that dignity is a component of happiness. A competent judge, which is you right now before you get in the chair, knows what it's like to have an intellect. Right.
You know the value of understanding the world. You would not trade your identity as a rational being for a life of mere sensation. You would prefer to be Socrates dissatisfied.
So the refusal to get in the chair proves that we value the quality of the experience, not just the raw chemical output.
Precisely. Happiness requires you to be there to experience it. If you effectively lobotomize yourself, the you that matters isn't really there anymore.
All right. Experiment number 2, the sheriff and the mob. This one tests that justice argument.
Let's hear it.
You are a sheriff in a volatile city. A terrible crime has been committed. The public is furious. They are about to riot. And if they riot, hundreds will die, businesses will burn. A disaster.
High stakes.
You have a prisoner. You know for a fact he is innocent. He's a drifter, no family, nobody knows him. If you frame him and execute him, the mob will be satisfied. They will go home. You save hundreds of lives, but you kill one innocent man.
So does utilitarianism say kill the drifter?
That's the question. A lot of people think the answer is yes. They do the quick math. 100 dead versus 1 dead. It seems obvious. But a true utilitarian, following the text, says no.
Walk me through that, because on the surface, saving 100 people seems like the happy choice.
You have to look at the long-term utility. The act of framing an innocent person strikes at the very heart of the utility of security.
Going back to that justice concept.
Exactly. If it becomes known, or even if it just becomes a possibility that the law will sacrifice innocent people for convenience, then no one is safe.
The rights of every single citizen are devalued.
Right. The terror of living in a society where you can be framed by the sheriff outweighs the temporary benefit of stopping one riot.
So upholding the rule of justice is actually the best way to maximize happiness in the long run.
Yes, exactly. You are protecting the groundwork of social existence. If you destroy that foundation, you destroy the possibility of happiness for everyone.
That makes a lot of sense. It keeps the theory from becoming a villain's monologue. It aligns morality with the long-term well-being of the species, not just immediate gratification.
It does. It forces you to think big picture.
So, bringing it all home, why does a book from 1879 still matter? Why should we care about this today?
I think it matters because it shifts the conversation. Before this, morality was often about following abstract rules because God said so or because it's tradition. This text brings it down to earth. It makes morality about the tangible well-being of sentient creatures. It asks, does this actually help people? Does it reduce suffering?
It demands results, not just good intentions.
And it forces us to expand our circle of empathy. He was writing about women's rights and looking forward to a time when poverty was gone. He saw morality as a progressive project.
And here's a final provocative thought to leave you with. He notes in the book that things like slavery and serfdom were once defended as necessary and expedient.
People thought civilization would collapse without them.
Exactly. And now we see them as monstrous injustices.
Our circle of empathy grew.
So, looking at our world today, what is the social inequality or the necessary evil that we tolerate right now? Because it's convenient that our great-grandchildren will look back on and say, I can't believe they allowed that.
Is it how we treat animals? Is it the massive disparity between the global north and south?
That's the question a true utilitarian never stops asking. Something to mull over. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time on Talk Treatises.